can't say the new Open is not a banger, right? Huge shout out to Liam Blaze in the back room. But right now, Caden Colford, Jake Helton for yet another episode of Last Call Again. And as we always do, we're going to start with UINDY sports, UINDY football. They went up to Detroit, took a nice little vacation, walked out, no harm, no foul, 30-6, an easy win for the Greyhounds. And they continued their rampage, not only through the GLVC, but now facing a GLIAC team, just running them off the road. Jake, dominance from this football team.
Absolutely, and you mentioned that word dominance, and that's something that comes along with every UINDY defense. And I was thinking to myself about the team last year and how dominant that defense was. And I guess my question to you is, do you think that we're seeing a better team this year, in a better defensive squad, I should say? Because that safety at the end of the game, that'll show you that they're playing 4 whole quarters, playing the entire game. And then they also had 2 interceptions on a quarterback that's not half bad. And I mean, if you ask me, that is domination. You're going on the road, no touchdowns given up, and as a home team in front of your home crowd, if you're not going to score, I mean, it's a rough look if you ask me. And you can look at the stats behind us. Sukup, his second consecutive game with over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 21 of 33, not too bad. He's very efficient with his passes, gets it down the field, but then he also uses Anthony Crowell, in that short game. You see he has 9 receptions, 107 yards, I should say. So really using every single layer on the offense. And obviously that man behind you, the run game, 107 yards. So looking at this team offensively and defensively, you just see a complete team. It looks like they've got all the right pieces moving in the right order.
Complete is the name of the game for this squad. Obviously, Gavin Sukup, Conference Player of the Year. He was the Male Athlete of the Year here at UIndy. And the guy behind me, I like to say, is one of the premier route runners on this team. Anthony Crowell, he has the speed. Nobody can keep up with him in man, and his routes are just about perfect, right? He slips through zones, right behind linebackers, in front of safeties, and then his runs after the catch. Amazing. Amazing. This guy's lightning speed. He has the speed that makes fast people look slow, as some might say. And this whole team, when we talk about the offense, a play-action bomb just waiting to happen. John Lewis is always going to have his 5 yards of rush. He's going to break through for a couple big plays a game, and he hit a couple touchdowns in this one as well, or 1 touchdown at that, and 91 yards. Gavin Sukup still doing his thing with 3 touchdowns. But I want to touch on what you began to allude to. This defense really might be the backbone of this squad.
Yeah, I mean, like, I really like to mention that fourth quarter sack, because that's typically when you see a team kind of tail off, not play as good. They're winning by already 3 scores at that point. So looking at that shows me that they're going to be able to play 4 quarters, and it's very important, especially against some of these GLVC teams we saw last year, tail end of the season. That fourth quarter against McKendree, they struggled to play, and it looked like they were just tired. They were out of it. Didn't look like they were ready to compete. But this team, from what I have seen this year, has come out. They've competed for 60 minutes every single game, and that's a typical Coach Keever's squad right there.
I think a lot of it is Keevers and his squad take a lot of pride in the dirty work up front. On the lines, on both ends, you're looking at great rosters. And I think for opposing quarterbacks, opposing offenses, it's really hard to run through that line. Those front 4 are great at creating push, great at adding pressure. So to develop a run game is tough. You're going to have to throw it over this UIndy team, and that's where you get lost with some defensive backs that you need to see. Jalen Gavon was a sophomore last year, and he was giving guys a lot of trouble. And Cavante Houston's going to have another great year. I know Michael Brown is dealing with some stuff off the field, trying to get back, get his arm ready. But I like where they're at. I like where they continue to be. We're looking for probably Quincy and the GLVC to be that game that you circle from here, the one that you got to win, the team that you have to beat. Yeah. What do you think?
I agree, but looking at this defense, only giving up 125 yards on the game, and we'll go back and take a look at that schedule. Saginaw Valley this weekend, homecoming, big game here at UIndy. All the families come out. It's also family weekend here at UIndy. So a very big game, and you know Coach Keevers always likes to show out for that. They're going to have their probably black jerseys, I'd imagine. We'll see the blackout, hopefully. Those are personally my favorite. I don't know about you, but and then they're going to go back on the road against William Jewell. So 2 games, not necessarily tough opponents, but games that you have to show up and play against.
If you're watching the game on Saturday, you'll watch Jake on UIndy TV. You can listen to me on 88.7 The Diamond, WICR. So either way, we'll be there for you for UIndy football. But elsewhere, outside of football and UIndy Fall Sports, how about this volleyball team, and how about Sophie Parlanti and Claire Morris being named to the Frostburg State All-Tournament team this past Invitational? They are on a tear. They've won 24 of their last 26 sets, and at the Bobcat tournament that they were just at, did not lose a single set. Jake, this team is great.
Yeah, very impressive, and I've gotten the chance to call a couple games at the UIndy Invitational here at Ruth Lilly, and one thing I will mention about this team, we kind of alluded to this last week. We talked about these UIndy teams bringing their own energy, and that's something that this team is very good at. Coach Jason Reed has done one of the best jobs I've seen here at UIndy, similar to Coach Melissa Frost with the softball team. Bringing the energy anytime, every time that you look down at that bench, they're all standing up, they're all cheering the whole game. Never once do you see one of those players sit down. They're always really excited for their teammates, and you can just see the joy on their face. They really enjoy playing a volleyball, and obviously you can see it's getting them results. A very young team, but coming out early in the season and making it count.
Parlanti with 43 kills, 6 blocks, and only 4 matches. And in those same 4 matches, Claire Morris with 133 assists alongside 26 digs. A team to watch if you have not already. We're going to head back to football, this time for the Division I level. That's in a couple minutes. Stick around.
Mission here at Flannel House Indy is to help with the development and growth, the self-efficiency and self-sufficiency of the near northwest side of Indianapolis. When the Double Eights closed in the area, that left the near northwest side a food desert. So Brandon Cosby, the executive director of Flannel House, started with the Flannel House Farms, where they grow fresh produce organically for the neighborhood around. And then later on down the line, Cleo's came about. So we're here to help with the sustainability of getting fresh food at cheap prices to the locals around. Black owned, black ran. That's the gist of Cleo's for the most part.
Back on Last Call, went over UIndy football, but now how about those Hoosiers? Those Hoosiers making a name for themselves in college football, Jake. Usually a team that a lot of us overlook, including me. I was not expecting a 4-0 start to the season, but after a 52-14 win against Charlotte, that is exactly where we are at for the Crimson and Cream. They look great. Rourke under center, a phenomenal job this weekend. 16 for 20, incredibly efficient with a touchdown, but it was really the run game that dominated throughout. Similar to UIndy, Jake.
Yeah, definitely the run game. And one thing I also like to highlight is a little bit of resiliency shown by this team, a little bit of a comeback right before the half. Obviously, the scoreboard doesn't necessarily reflect that, but at one point it was 21-14, and it was a very close game. So coming out in the second half and being able to blow them out of the water like they did, I think it shows once again, playing a full game. You see points getting put up the entire game, all 4 quarters. And I want to talk about the passing game a little bit. Rourke, I think he's one of the most underrated, if not the biggest underrated quarterback in the Big Ten right now. I think a lot of people are starting to realize how good the Hoosiers can be. But right now they're sitting at 4-0. We could see an 8-9 win season here. I wouldn't be surprised. The run game, as you mentioned, carry him. Lawton, 2 touchdowns. I think 5 touchdowns in total on the ground. And That's something we haven't seen from an Indiana team in a long time.
For IU, they are just outside of the top 25 in the AP poll. They're getting about, I think, 63 votes in the AP poll, 67 in the coaches poll. With a win this next week, they could possibly be within the top 25, and it's not like their schedule is exactly the toughest in the country, right? At least I don't think so. I could definitely see them in the top 15, maybe even top 12 by the time the season's over. What do you see as IU ceiling?
I mean, as I take a look over this schedule, I see 2 games that are almost automatic losses to me against Ohio State and Michigan. Those are just tough games. One at Ohio State, and then Michigan, a very tough team to defend, honestly. But I mean, I see wins against Northwestern, Maryland, probably even Nebraska. I wasn't that impressed by them.
I think that's the decider.
I think you're right. That's the big game. That's the circle on the calendar for IU. If they win that game, then that's a successful season in my books. It might not be a playoff season, might not be the ultimate end goal, but it's a step in the right direction. You go from, 4 wins last year? It wasn't a lot. And now you're stepping back. You're getting the fans back into it. It's kind of like when Michael Penix was there. People enjoy watching Hoosier football again. And I think that's the big thing this season.
I mean, for IU, with over 200 points in 4 games, high offense, or high capability offense, high altitude offense, the way this team throws the ball, it's fun to watch, and I think that translates well to postseason football.
Yeah, and also just not putting a lot of pressure on your defense. By putting up a lot of points, it takes all that pressure off your defense to just go out there, play, and that is exactly what they have done. I'm looking now, they've only given up 3 touchdowns all season. But definitely want to take a look at Notre Dame now. Riley Leonard, is he back? Is he not back? I'm still kind of on the fence.
Was he ever there?
I don't know. I will argue you this morning. I was like, I'm going to do Riley Leonard a favor. I'm going to watch his Duke highlights. So this morning I spent about 4.5 minutes. Yes, that's how long the highlight video is, 4.5 minutes from his entire time at Duke. But all I saw was him throwing underneath. He's a master of the underneath throw, especially across the middle. He can throw between the hashes. I mean, it's pretty impressive to watch him run the ball, but like I said last week, you're not doing that against an Oregon. You're not doing that against an Ohio State. That's not going to work. You can't throw you have to be able to throw the ball to run the ball, vice versa. They can really only run the ball. He's not, in my opinion, if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm not threatened by Riley Leonard through the air.
Not at all. They have Louisville next week. That will be 15 against 16 in the country. And Notre Dame's trying to crawl up to that top 10 again. That's where they feel that they should be like. I think Louisville, they have a great QB under center, and they can throw the ball very well. So for Notre Dame, that's a defense that's it kept Texas A&M to 13 points, kept Miami, Ohio to 3, but I don't see you doing that against Louisville, and I don't know if this Notre Dame offense can outscore the Cardinals.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a rough one. I can think of a couple different instances where Notre Dame was either undefeated or 1 loss heading into this game and absolutely crapped the bed. And I believe 2 years ago is when the last time that happened. But I guess we will see if they can perform a little bit better this year against ranked opponents. We've seen 1 good win against Texas A&M, if you want to consider them a ranked opponent. I mean, in my opinion, not that good of a team. But I do think that Notre Dame is on the up.
On the up. Fever and Colts are next right here on Last Call.
Are you feeling alone in your faith? UINDY Catholic gives you an opportunity to get involved in a religious community on campus, providing sacramental needs and fellowship for prospective students and giving you a sense of belonging.
We just want you guys to know that God loves you, He delights in you, and He's in awe of you. And we would love to meet you, so you should come on out.
UINDY Catholic, a community for you.
For children who may have high-functioning autism, may have ADHD, processing challenges, working memory issues, sensory integration issues, those types of challenges. It's a place where human beings are valued, children are respected, It's a progressive school that takes a hands-on approach to education.
Caitlin Clark's WNBA playoff debut. Fever lost. Fever lost by a lot more than you would want to see the Fever lose by. Almost 30 points, Jake. This game, pretty ugly, especially after halftime. We saw Caitlin Clark go, 4 for 17 on the day? Not very good at all. But I guess the positive you can say about it, there's nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, I guess that's the optimistic way to look at things. I did see some stuff that I liked. I did get a chance to watch this game, and she got clamped in the first half. The defense wasn't there in the second half, but neither was her shooting. She was still missing. Yeah. She hit a couple threes, went on a little bit of a run. We talked about her scoring in streaks. That's kind of her thing. But in my opinion, the thing that kills the momentum for the Fever is sometimes it's Kelsey Mitchell. She shoots the ball very quickly on the fast break, and I watched it. Just off of memory, I can think of 3 different instances where she went down, either shot a pull-up, shot a pull-up 3, and one of them she did make, I'll give her that, but there's nobody else down the court. If she misses, there's no chance for a rebound. So then it's leading to the other team just getting a free possession. They waste a lot of possessions is what I'm getting at, and in the playoffs, every possession is valuable, and you can't turn the ball over like they do. You can't take bad shots like they do. A lot of it is an experience thing, but, they made the Suns look like the WNBA champs right there.
Yeah, 93-69, not nearly the best showing that we've seen all season. But also I want to point out, I think the Fever got the very, very best the Sun could offer last night. They shot 50% from 3. You have a triple-double from Alyssa Thomas and 27 points off the bench from Marina Mabry.
Yeah,
so at that point, I don't think the Sun get any better. It's all about just the adjustments that the Fever can make. I think Caitlin Clark gets her shot back. Shooting slumps, you got to shoot out of it, right? I think we're still going to see 17 shots put up. I think the efficiency, it can't get worse.
But answer me this. How many times do we see, we are always so shocked by a random bench player having a big game, and obviously they weren't ready for her. She came out, I watched her shoot 3 wide open threes coming out of the second half.
Yeah.
Made them all, back to back to back. And it's not like she's just an incredible player. She's good. She's very talented. But you got to be able to get a hand up. Whenever you're just shooting wide open threes, anyone can make that. I could make that. And whenever you had to play a little bit better defense. You got to have a little bit more pride in your defense, I feel like. That's the thing. They don't take any pride in playing defense. They try and outscore teams, and when your shot's not on, that's what the score looks like.
That's exactly where I was going. It seems like this Indiana Fever team really wanted to go out and have a shootout. They wanted to go tray ball for tray ball when you're shooting about 25% from 3 this game. It just was not there. The defense could not pick anything up. Aaliyah Boston had a solid game, shooting about 50% with 17 points, 10 rebounds. She did great, but even down the stretch, we still saw 3 after 3 after 3 when Boston was really the only one having a relatively productive and efficient night. And like I've said a couple times now, I'm kind of harping on it, the adjustments just need to be made. And once the adaptations can be included in the game, outside of just your regular game plan, outside of go Caitlin, then I think you have a real shot at beating the Sun. But, important note, they're still in Connecticut for Game 2. If they were to win, they would bring it back to Indy, but a tall hill to climb before then. So the Fever, we're rooting for them, but an uphill battle indeed. We have the Colts next, and, we don't have the panic button. There's no bell on our table today. They would end up winning against the Chicago Bears 21-16. First thoughts about this one, Jake?
Definitely an exciting game to watch. I was really excited to watch this one. Not a freshman, a rookie quarterback battle between, or not a battle anymore. For some reason, I just think that Anthony Richardson is still a rookie. Maybe it's just the way he plays.
Well, for games played, he is. He is. Experience level, he is a rookie. And as we compare these two, you look at that 363 by Caleb Williams, you're saying, wow, this guy must have had a day. But me and you were saying this 52 in the attempts column, he dropped back to pass a lot.
He threw the ball more times than the Colts ran plays. Like they had more attempted passes than the Colts did attempted plays. But the Colts were efficient with those plays, and they might have listened to us. Maybe they tuned into last call and were like, you know what, I guess these guys are right, because Jonathan Taylor, he stepped it up. They gave him the ball, 23 carries, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns. You see it right behind me here, and just an absolute great game. That's what you expect to see from a Colts team. Tell me I'm wrong. When you tuned into that game, that was Colts football right there.
100%.
Great defense. The picks, perfect. I mean, there were a couple of defensive PIs that I was a little iffy on, but other than that, great defense by the Colts and a lot of pressure in the backfield on Caleb Williams. He was pressured, I'd say, probably 80% of the time.
JT did his part. The defense did their part. Anthony Richardson, I don't think anybody can look in the eye that say he had a great game. However, I think he did enough. Do you think he is the franchise quarterback of the Colts, has the ability to be that guy?
Well, at this point, if you're the Colts, you can't turn back. They've made their decision. They're sticking with him, and I think with time, it's a time thing. We've mentioned it many of times. He's only played 30-ish games outside of high school, and I think a lot of it is an experience thing. If he would have got the ability to play last year and had that full season, I think we're talking about a completely different Colts team here. But we're not. We're talking about this Colts team here, and if they're going to let him throw the ball 20 times a game and he can complete 10 of them, I think that we see here that's clearly enough to get them a win. But over time, 50% doesn't get you
where you need to be
championships.
The majority of the time.
Yeah, it's a rough one.
I mean, regarding Anthony Richardson, the dog factor. It's there, right? This guy, a competitor.
Absolutely. And dog is the perfect word to describe him. You see him pushing his running back into the end zone. That's not something you see from every quarterback. Getting their hands dirty, little bit makes me a little nervous seeing him run. He is a run-first quarterback, but that's just his game, and I think that you got to respect it.
Yeah, you get flashbacks to last year when he's throwing himself headfirst into the Texans' defense and shipping himself off for the rest of the season. But you got to love a guy that gets behind his team the way that Anthony Richardson does. And it's so easy after throwing, I would say a couple, but it was more than a couple bad passes, to kind of get down on yourself and to just kind of let the game happen. But AR still goes at the game. Whether he's running, the guy runs like a fullback, whether, he was blocking. He puts his body on the line for the team. That's something that I can respect above anything else, before anything else. Absolutely. AR is that guy.
You can tell he wants to win football games, and that'll get you places. Obviously, a 1-2 record is going to be tough to make something out of this start of the season, but I think towards the latter half, you kind of forget about this stuff, and it's like, we'll get into the winning. And I don't think that this is a playoffs team for the Colts. And that's just my opinion. I don't think that they're ready yet, but I could see an 8-9, maybe even 10 win and slipping in the wild card type of team. But
well, Colts, they get their first win on the board, and they might have their second next week against the Steelers. Obviously, we'll cover that next week. But when we come back, we're going to have 3 picks. The primetime pick'em with Caden and Jake.
Emma Donnan, elementary and middle school. Discover the Donnan difference. A school where you can celebrate others. Come together as a community. Be a part of a learning environment where students and teachers are appreciated. Emma Donnan, a culture that can't be beat, that's going onward together. A school filled with love. Emma Donnan.
I love my school.
It's go time, competition time. It's your first time watching this segment. We call it the Primetime Pick'em. Caden, Jake Helton, and premise is pretty simple. We look at the primetime games of the week, and we pick who we feel has the upper edge. We'll start. I'll give it to you, Jake. We have Jacksonville at Buffalo. What do you think?
Definitely an interesting matchup, and I think the Jaguars have been off to a little bit of a slow start, but I think I honestly like them in this matchup. They got Gabe Davis. They took him, and I mean,
they got Gabe Davis.
I mean, I'm a fan of Trevor Lawrence. I think a lot of people hate on Trevor Lawrence, but I think we see him ball out tonight. This is my going out on a limb pick this week. A little bit risky, but I'm going to take a shot with Trevor Lawrence.
You can't beat the favorite every time. I agree, you can't. But I am this time. I mean, I think the Bills go to work on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I just haven't seen much of anything that I like out of the Jaguars. I was skeptical of the Bills wide receiver room, but Josh Allen has just proved to the league, game in, game out, that he is a top 3 quarterback, if not top 2 quarterback in the National Football League. The guy gets it done every week. How can you bet against him?
Yeah, I mean, I was impressed by the comeback win against Arizona, but this is a Bills team that constantly disappoints. I mean, we see them in the playoffs constantly disappointing, and big games, I feel like they just don't show up. And today, Monday Night Football, doubleheader, a little bit more pressure maybe. I think it gets to them.
That might be the setting to lose. That might be the setting to lose. As we move into our second game of the segment, Washington versus the Bengals, and I'll start us off on this one. I like Jaden Daniels a lot. I think Washington's getting better. But now that the Bengals are out of their yearly first 2-week slump, I think you start to get things going. I think we start to see the Joe Burrow that everybody knows and loves, and maybe Jamar Chase can actually play some football for once. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to agree with you there. I think this was the easy pick of the week. Nothing against the Commanders. It's just that they gave away their best defensive guy for pretty much pennies. I mean, what are you doing? I mean, Jaden Daniels, he's all right. I like him. He's fun to watch, so this will be a very fun game to watch. But if the Bengals let him run like they let Jacoby Brissett run in week 1, they're going to have some issues because Jaden Daniels can get out of the pocket. He can get it done on his feet, and if they don't contain, they have to get on the outside and contain. But it'll be an interesting game. And one thing I do want to note, though, is with Jamar and the contract thing, if I'm the Bengals, I'm not paying him. He has not showed me – what has he done to show the Bengals that he deserves a contract like that? He's walking off the field, getting penalties for being a 12th man on the field. I don't see the effort. It's like he doesn't want to be there. And maybe that's an offshoot of the contract controversy. But right now, as the Bengals, I'm not giving him that money.
And we could even think about the Kansas City game, right? You have that unsportsmanlike conduct call that moves you back from a 3rd down to about 20, and that puts the game nearly out of reach for the Bengals. Not looking great for Jamar Chase as he's trying to chase his CeeDee Lamb-esque contract.
Yeah. But speaking of CeeDee Lamb, we'll go ahead and take a look over at the Cowboys and the Giants. And this is actually a little bit more interesting of a matchup than people may look at. And this Giants team, not as bad as some think.
Not as bad as some think. I think they're the better of these two teams. I think the Giants at home beat the Cowboys, who can't seem to find any sort of rhythm at all. I don't think they can find an identity in their offense. I think CeeDee has, to an extent, underperformed this year alongside Dak, and Ezekiel Elliott, as much as I hate to say it, he's over the hump. I don't think that the Cowboys have the ground game to really be not a contender, but even an elite team. I don't think we'll see them go far in the playoffs. I think they get exposed against the Giants here with a solid defense and an adequate offense.
I guess you could say that, but I am going to go ahead and say that I will disagree with you. I'm going to go with the Cowboys, and maybe it's just my roommate rubbing off on me, but I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
It's America's team.
Yeah, I mean, I got to watch them this weekend, or yesterday actually, and it was Not the best game, honestly. It wasn't the most intriguing game, but I think the big difference in this team compared to last year's team is the defense. It's not as dominant. Last year, they were giving up, I think they gave up less than 20 points a game. They were forcing turnovers, multiple turnovers every game. They were scoring off those turnovers. I mean, you think about how many pick sixes they had last year. I know personally in fantasy, they got me a lot of points last year.
They were if you had to pick a defense, that was your team.
Exactly. This year, they're one of the worst. They had -1 fantasy points last week. Pretty darn bad. But as much as I am going to talk crap about them, I'm going to go ahead and pick them. I do think they're the better of those two teams. I talked about the Giants a little bit. They are doing better than they have previously. But I just think the Cowboys are going to be the better team. You saw Dak. Hop off the bandwagon if you want. Hop off the wagon. I'm going to stay on the wagon this week. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Cowboys.
We'll have updated records for you next week and keep them updated weekly as to who is winning in the primetime pick-em between Jake and myself. So UINDY Sports doing their thing. Colts and Fever both keeping the city very relevant, very high on all of their athletics. And the pick'em, we'll see Caden Colford winning at the end of the season. You better believe it. Jake Helton, Caden Colford, last call.